Hello and welcome. In this second post, which also is our second session, we have started the actual training. So we are more like unboxing our toolbox, opening our toolbox so that we can know what to work with. And in this case, we are dealing with understanding the characteristics of the staff notation. Characteristics of the staff notation. As we go on, make sure you have what you are seeing on the screen. You need a paper, a plain paper without lines, probably something like a drawing paper or any book or booklet you may have that you can draw. You need that. Again, you need a pen or a pencil, a pen or a pencil, and then you need a ruler, preferably a transparent plastic ruler. You need that. Now, alternatively, you may need to buy a music note or exercise book and a pen. If any music store is around you, you can get a music notebook or a music exercise book and a pen. Now, when you get a music exercise book, you do not need items A, B, A and C. That means you don't need a plain paper or a ruler because the music notes or exercise book would have covered that for you. The musical staff is like a map for musicians, showing them the way to find the right notes. The staff is a representation of sounds, though written on paper or graphically, it represents how sounds are organized, but on paper. So think of the staff, the musical staff, as a graphical representation of musical notes on a ladder, which helps musicians find the right notes to play. You know, when you look at the staff, this is what the staff looks like. If you can see it on the left side of my screen, you can see that. Characteristics of the staff. This is what the staff looks like. If you see it, you see lines drawn across the board and spaces in between. That is the characteristics of the staff we are studying now. The staff is made up of 5 lines and 4 spaces. You can see that line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, and line 5. It is made up of 5 lines and then 4 spaces. You can see that space 1, space 2, space 3, and space 4. Now, all of these are important characteristics of the staff. Every music staff or musical staff is identified by 5 lines and 4 spaces. As we have seen, the lines are indicated there with the blue arrows. Notice that we are reading from bottom to top, beginning from 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for the lines from bottom to the top, and of course the spaces from 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the spaces. Okay, the staff is the basic structure in the written music. It is the basic structure in the written music. The staff is bland and mostly useless without an identifier called the clef. I repeat that. The staff is useless. It's just a series of lines drawn, 5 lines and 4 spaces. Now, when you see it without an identifier called clef. It can serve no purpose. Whatever you do there is purely a waste of time. So that leads us to a characteristic of the staff notation called the clef. The clef. There are several types of clef in music, but for the sake of what we are doing, choral music, and of course useful for the piano and the organ and several other instruments, we identify them with the clef. This is a clef and this is also a clef. They have their names. This is called the G-clef. Some of you may have seen this before. This is the G-clef and this is the F-clef. The G-clef is also known as the treble clef. Okay, the G-clef is known as the treble clef, as you can see. So you either call it the G-clef or the treble clef. Why is it the G-clef? Because this clef sits on the G string, on the string of G. It sits on the string of G. We'll look at that shortly. And this is called the F-clef. The F-clef because it sits on the string of F or on the line. Here we're talking about lines and spaces. So the G-clef sits on line G and the F-clef sits on line F. Notice that the clefs must sit on lines and not on spaces. They must sit on the lines rather than the spaces. Here is a representation. Okay, you can notice on this side of the screen that we have placed the G-clef on the second line. Now, I told you earlier that the staff is useless without the identifier called the clef. Now, we have positioned the clef on the staff. So, when you want to position the G-clef or the treble clef, it must sit on the second line, of the staff. It is a rule that the G or treble clef must sit on the second line, which is G, giving it the name G-clef. And it is used to identify the higher or lighter voices. Traditionally, and in most cases, what the soprano and then the alto sing mostly fall within this place, the G clef. So what you can see now is that with the G clef sitting in its proper place, it helps us to give names to the lines and spaces. It helps us to give names to the lines and spaces. So you can see that the tie or the hook of the G clef or the treble clef is sitting on G. So we can confidently, which is the second line, as I earlier pointed out, we can now confidently say, okay, since it is sitting on the second line, the rule of law is that we start counting from bottom to top. Remember that we start counting from the bottom to top. Like I said earlier, we count from bottom to top. So having done that now, we can now name the lines. I've already done that earlier. So the first line is E, the second line is G, the third line is B, the fourth line is D, and the fifth line is F. We are dealing with lines in this case and the clef. Okay, now let's talk about the F-clef or the bass F-clef. Now, if you call it bass, I'm okay with that. The F-clef or the bass clef. It looks like an inverted letter C with a hook, or somewhat of the number 9 written in a choir manner. Now, the rule is that if you put the F-clef on the staff, it must sit on the fourth line. Notice that this line is fourth, reading from bottom 1, 2, 3, and 4. So when you want to put the F-clef, it must sit on the fourth line, which is identified here as the F line. So reading from the bottom again to the top, we identify it as G, B, D, F, and A. I repeat that. When you sit the F-clef, you now read from bottom on the lines. We are dealing with the lines now. G, B, D, F, and A. All right. Okay, quiz time on what we have learned so far. Quiz time. Name the characteristics of the staff notation. Name the characteristics of the staff notation. The next question is, how many lines and spaces has the staff? How many lines and spaces? Okay, draw the treble and bass clefs and post back on the page. Draw the treble and bass clefs and post back on the page. Now, on the treble and bass clefs you have drawn, give their two names. Each clef has two names. One, the treble and bass clef. The other one is by the strings or the lines on which they sit. Identify that and get back to us. Okay, so, and then what makes a staff a treble or bass staff? What makes a staff a treble or bass staff? I'll be expecting your answers to be sure you are following the lesson. If you have any question, please post it back on the platform and I will get back to you even before the next lesson is posted. Thank you and God bless you.